Howdy folks, you have tuned in to another Wumu transmission. I have a wonderful episode for you today. And sorry for the little break. No coincidence that the first break day of the World Cup, I record a video. Not exactly sorry about it. Anyway, also one little point I wanted to touch on. Like any artist should, they refine the quality of their work through experience. And not so much in terms of feedback on the videos, because let's be honest, not many people are watching them. Thanks, YouTube. Or me. More so just in speaking to people about these kind of deep esoteric topics, specifically like metaphysics, and it can sound scary and off-putting. So I will be making a concerted effort in this video just to introduce a few more layman's terms, kind of ground the ideas a little bit and provide a few different angles or lenses in which to look at all these metaphysical things. Metaphysics, by the way, just means non-physical, right? So it's like your thoughts. Where do your thoughts come from? That is what it is. It doesn't have to be any bigger or scarier than just non-physical aspects of our reality, right? Now, today we're going to be covering the origin of the golden ratio, phi, the Fibonacci sequence, and looking into how the mechanics of how physical reality, the quasi-physical nature of reality manifests. Like, what is this experience, you know? So, let's start nice and simple. The movie analogy. Now, I'm not sure I've mentioned this on my YouTube, but I did do a TikTok on this the other day. Providing the example, the same way we have physical parents, we are the creation of the father, the masculine, and the feminine, right? We also have metaphysical or non-physical parents. The father being the sun, this is where our high mind resides, and our mother being the earth, that is the matter which our body is made of, and our soul, our spirit, is the conduit between them. That is the pattern of light constantly traveling from the sun to the earth, right? Now, you need to understand, the sun is where our high mind resides, is essentially like a projector. It's like a loom weaving reality through patterns of light into matter, the earth, right? So you can see the sun as a projector, the earth, the matter, is the screen, and our soul, our spirit, is the conduit between that, the beam of light, the wave of light, right? Now, understand father in Latin is pater. That is where you get the word pattern from. Mother is mater. This is where matter or matrix come from. And soul in Latin is anima. That is what animates us. That is what gives us life. Matter, or the earth, without the sun, or any planet without its star, is just a rock. It is the sun that is the source of all life. That is the source of creation, right? So there's that. Now, on a more slightly technical tangent, understanding this under a quantum mechanical lens, wave-particle duality. I've spoken about the virtual photon effect in the Creator God episode, but understand, and I'll keep it simple, two particles, negative and a positive. So the negative is the feminine, the earth, the positive, the sun. We are just the wave between the positive and the negative. We are the balance point, the torsion point, which I'll come to in a minute. Now, this is super interesting, and this is why astrology works, by the way. So our soul, the frequency of our being, a soul is a specific frequency, is like a snowflake. It is a totally unique pattern inhabiting our body, a vessel. So these patterns of sound, which you can, and the word was God, sound, that is our frequency. So we are a very specific pattern of sound, essentially. Now, the body itself is a symbol, that is CYMBAL, which you see on the right, a part of a drum set. That is a vessel for sound. So the body is a vessel, a soul container, a avatar, a meat suit, however you want to do it. And funnily enough, the word moshkaya also means vessel for an anointed one, right? So the ancient Egyptians used to bury their dead with a ship. Why would they bury it with a ship? Because it is a vessel to the afterlife. All right. Now, if you wonder how we actually have diversification between us all, and why we aren't all just the one same personality or looking thing, it's because, and this is why astrology works, at the very second you are born, the astrological alignments, when that beam of light seeds the earth, is affected by interference patterns of all other celestial objects in our sky. On the far left here, these are the cymatic patterns, the frequency, the vibration, the patterns of certain planets that revolve around Earth, right? Or around the sun. So these interference patterns affect our soul, the ray of light, as it seeds the Earth, and that is what makes us unique. That is where the snowflake analogy comes from. All right. Now, understanding frequency and vibration. Frequency is the actual pattern itself. So that is the cymatic I was just showing you. And the vibration is the strength of that signal, right? So how do you raise your frequency or raise your vibration? It's through authenticity. The idea is to align into your very specific, unique pattern. That is non-conformity. It is just being true to yourself. The truer, the more you express your true self, the higher your vibration rises. Now, why is this important? Because the higher you vibrate, it sounds funny, but the higher you raise your conscious awareness through vibration, the greater level of quantum access you have to information, right? When you really strengthen your soul as the conduit to the source, so Carl Jung would describe the collective unconscious. Well, that is what resides in the sun. That is the high mind. So the idea is create a connection, build your connection to the sun through your authentic being, okay? This is where you get the downloads from. This is where all this information, your thoughts, travel from, okay? So that's why it's important, and it's not all just new age spirituality, woo-woo, fucking woo-woo. It's real, it's proper. Right. Now, the Fibonacci sequence, how it's born, and why it is a universal constant. Why is it across everything, okay? Torsion and toroidal fields, they are one and the same. So the creation point, this on the far right here, so a toroid, by the way, a toroid just means donut, okay? Essentially. And because we live in a quantum field, which is electromagnetic by nature, the natural geometry of an electromagnetic field is the torus. That is why we have that. Now, the central point, that is the creation, the balance point, within that donut, this is called a torsional hyperboloid. So it just means a spiral, okay? And they work in opposing directions from the up and the down. Now, that very spiral, the center of creation, and I theorize that spiral is also gravity and time in our 4D manifestation of space-time, but that spiral is the Fibonacci sequence. That is the golden ratio, and understanding we live in a hollow fractal universe, meaning we're just densities of light, and what exists on one plane must exist, what exists on the microcosm exists on the macrocosm. This is the as above, so below, as within, so without, We are a microfractal of the universe as a whole, and it continues up through different levels, right? So that is the birth of the golden ratio. And if you think about it, you can see a torus in everything. We are birthed by a seed, okay? So, sperm enters the egg in your mother's womb. As that grows, you grow a torso, right? A torus. It goes up, you branch out, and your legs go down and root in. The same way a tree from a seed grows up, branches out and back down and around, and its root do exactly the same on the bottom end. It is a universal constant. It is fundamental, okay, to everything. So to the golden ratio. And this is why in ancient times, and still some people to this day, build like temples and whatnot, according to this divine ratio, because it is then resonant. It is more resonant with higher frequencies, you're able to download information in these resonant chambers, essentially, is what they were, okay? So creation is the balance of the positive and the negative. That is the central torsion point. And might I add, that shape, that torsional hyperboloid, that is also the Holy Grail. Can you see the Grail in there? That is what that is. And I've mentioned that in previous videos. If you missed it, go back and check them out. So creation is the balance of polarities. So too, free energy. I've done an episode on that. So too, the Holy Grail. And phi, the golden ratio. And us, our soul, is the balance, the torsion point between the negative, in this case Earth, and the positive, in this case the sun, or mum and dad on a more physical level. All right. Now, to anyone aspiring to win a Nobel Prize, or if you're curious as to what line of work or research still remains somewhat undiscovered with potential and want to know where the future is heading, look into torsion physics. This is where the money is. This is where, well, ironically, it's not where the money is. That's why people go elsewhere. This is where free energy systems will be developed, antigravitics and all this. It's all based on this torsion point, this creation point. It's fundamental. All right? Hope you enjoyed. That was fun. Woo-way.